Hello everyone, Rose Pants here, back with another episode highlighting a key chapter of the Pot Book, which is a complete guide to cannabis. It's edited by Julie Holland, and then each chapter is compilation. This week is going to be a little bit of a twofer. We're doing chapters 16 and 17. Chapter 16 is Arrest Statistics and Racism, which is written by Harry G. Levin, a PhD. And chapter 17 is Getting Busted is Not So Funny, which is an interview with Tommy Chong, and the interviewer is Julie Holland herself. So starting out with chapter 16, Arrest Statistics and Racism. I'm pretty sure just going into this, everyone already has that kind of like realm in their head that I'm pretty sure you agree with me, you're going to agree with this chapter. It is very much skewed with the arrest statistics and the people that are getting arrested. Page 203 of the Pot Book on chapter 16 does point out that U.S. government studies have consistently found that young whites use marijuana at higher rates than do young blacks or Latinos, but the NYPD has long arrested young blacks and Latinos for pot possession at much higher rates than whites. This chapter in specific does use New York City in specific as their great example for this study. They did find that in 2008, blacks were about 26% of New York City's population, but over 54% of the people arrested for pot possession, while Latinos were about 27% of New Yorkers, but 33% of pot arrestees. Whites were over 35% of the population, but less than 10% of the people arrested for possessing marijuana. Obviously, those numbers show that there's a huge difference in who is using and who is actually getting arrested. Since the war on drugs began about the 1990s, they do think that about at least 40% of all drug arrests are now just for marijuana possession, and U.S. marijuana arrests are an all-time high, and in the last 10 years, the United States has arrested more than 6 million people, mostly young people, for possessing marijuana. A key theme that we talked about in an earlier chapter definitely revolves around this same theme, where majority of the people that are being arrested are mostly young people, and them getting arrested is completely ruining their life potential. So more and more we are realizing that this war on drugs is complete bullshit. It is not successful in any way. It has not even shown any statistics or dealings that show that it's being successful. And tying into that same thought, they do even say on page 205, in effect, the marijuana arrests provide the young, mostly low-income blacks and Latinos and whites with a head start for unemployment and prison. Like I said before, the war on drugs is a complete fail, but we've got proof of how much of a fail it is. On page 206, it says, up to $1 billion a year has been going to states, prosecutors, and police departments through the Byron Grant Program to fight drug and crime. And it's in the book, they put the word fight in quotations. Many Democrats in Congress have been strong supporters of the Byron grants, including Senators Joe Biden and Barack Obama. How coincidentally. In 2009, Congress added $2 billion to the Byron Grant Program, which raised it to its highest level ever. So if you were like me and in the past few years, you've kind of been wondering how they are affording all of these DEA raids in medical marijuana states where Obama had previously said he was going to leave them alone, apparently this is where that money is coming from. I do love all the conclusions for these chapters because they're so short and sweet and just get down to the point. Again, on page 206, is this what Americans want their police to be doing? Arresting enormous numbers of young people, disproportionately black and Latino, and destroying their futures for pot possession? It's a huge question that we all need to ask ourselves. Like, honestly, is this what we want to be putting our tax dollars and all of our resources towards? Is it accomplishing what we even wanted it to accomplish in the first place? What are the ideals of this war on drugs and how we need to change it? or just eliminate it altogether. Moving on to chapter 17, Getting Busted is Not So Funny, the interview with Tommy Chong. There were just a few things that I wanted to point out that were huge examples for how this war on drugs is a complete failure. The first huge red flag that came up about Operation Pipe Dreams, which was the appropriate name that the feds dubbed the investigation, it's estimated that it cost approximately $12 million, including the resources of 2,000 law enforcement officers, just to arrest one person. So this is a question that we really need to all ask ourselves. Is this really where we want our tax dollars and our resources going toward? The second huge red flag, and this is even more of a huge red flag because it's not so recognized, and that is the process of how the DEA actually physically arrested Tommy Chong. The Reader's Digest version of it is that Tommy had his company, Chong Glass, producing pipes and bongs, selling them all across the United States, except for a few places where it is illegal to have paraphernalia. The DEA then repeatedly attempted to order and have a bong shipped to a place in Pennsylvania where it is illegal to have paraphernalia. Of course, they repeatedly denied this request and would not process the order, but then somehow a new person was hired and the order somehow got slipped through. Once that bong was sent out to Pennsylvania, that was enough. That was all the proof and evidence that the DEA needed. They swooped on in and arrested Tommy Chong. Another thing that I wanted to point out from this interview was something kind of odd. Julie says, "At one point someone asked you what prison was like, and you said, 'Oh, you'll see.' What are you getting at when you say that?" And Tommy replies, "The way this country is going, anybody could be put in jail for any reason." Now at first you kind of feel like that's an exaggeration, but then you think back on the arrest statistics and the racism that is so obviously still present, and yeah, it kind of makes more sense. And really, it comes down to just anybody could be arrested for any reason now. We're going to end this out with a lovely quote from Tommy Chong. It appears on page 218, and he says, "Like Martin Luther King, I want to be up there with the cancer patients and the people that have a dire need to use marijuana as a medicine. And I'd like the Marijuana Research Institute to connect all these researchers who have the potential to help these patients." I know it can be obvious that the war on drugs is an obvious fail. It's not working, it hasn't been working, it's not going to work, but overall, hopefully there were some key things in this chapter that maybe you didn't know before or you found out more about it. As always, we feed our mind with cannabis information and news, so let's reward the rest of our bodies in our cannabinoid system that we know works so well. Join me next week where we're actually going to be kicking off part 3 of the pop book, the clinical uses of cannabis, starting with chapter 20, which is going to be the clinical applications of medical marijuana. Again, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys next time.